Hello students, welcome to the second part of the biological classification. In the first part of biological classification, we have learned about the five kingdom classification. It was proposed by R.H. Whitaker and it has five kingdoms such as kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. In our first class, we have learned about kingdom Monera. I hope you already have gone through this and have done the assignments too and mailed me the answers. So today we'll learn about kingdom Protista. So this class is all about kingdom Protista, and in every coming classes we'll learn about one kingdom. So let's start with kingdom Protista. Now look at the background. It says kingdom Protista. So many types of living organisms are there in the background. Definitely much variation is there than the kingdom Monera, where we have learned about only the bacteria. So in kingdom Protista, how many types of animals are there, how many types of living organisms are there, what are their characteristics, what are the classification kingdom Protista, all these things we are going to read. So now first begin with the characteristics. So in the characters, we'll see all unicellular eukaryotes are present in this kingdom. All unicellular eukaryotes. Remember, in kingdom Monera, we have learnt about unicellular prokaryotes, right? So we have known about prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes means they don't have true nucleus. That means a nucleus is not surrounded by a nuclear membrane. But in case of eukaryotes, as we are, that we have a proper nucleus, a true nucleus, that means we are having a nucleus having a nuclear membrane. So in this kingdom, in kingdom Protista, all organisms are unicellular. In addition to that, they are eukaryote. That means they are much advanced than the kingdom Monera. We knew that when we read about kingdom Monera, that they were the most primitive organisms. They are the least developed organisms. So as it is the second kingdom, so it will be definitely more advanced. So in kingdom Protista, all unicellular eukaryotes are present. Remember this thing. It will come in a medical entrances also. In kingdom Protista, all unicellular eukaryotes are present. That means they are unicellular, means single cell, and eukaryotes. That means they have a true nucleus. And what are the other characters? First start with cell type. Cell type we have already discussed. It is eukaryote. Then cell wall. Present in some. In some cases cell wall is present. Or if not, then something like other substitution must be present. So cell wall present in some. In most of the kingdom Protista member, cell wall is present. Then comes the nuclear membrane. As it is eukaryote, so obviously a true nucleus is present. True nucleus means what? It should be surrounded by a nuclear membrane. That is why nuclear membrane is present. Then body organization. We know that they are unicellular. That means in one cell they have completed all its metabolism, all its functions. So they are cellular. They don't go to the tissue level. They are limited in cellular level only. So these four characters are cell type eukaryotic, cell wall present in some or most of the members, nuclear membrane is obviously present as they are eukaryotic, and body organization is cellular because they are completing their whole body functions in a single cell. Now let's see what are the modes of nutrition. As you know, there are two basic modes of nutrition. One is autotrophic and one is heterotrophic. In some members of kingdom Protista, they show autotrophic nutrition, and in some cases they show heterotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic means obviously they are photosynthetic. In kingdom Monera, we have learned about a chemosynthetic type, but here no one is chemosynthetic, only photosynthetic if they are autotrophic or heterotrophic. In heterotrophic variations are there that we will learn later. So mode of nutrition, we can say basically they can be of two types. One is autotrophic, or we can say photosynthetic, and another one is heterotrophic. Then come to movement. So some of the members can move, not all. Some of the members can move. If they can move, they should have some moving organelles, cell organelles, those organelles that are helping them in movement. So these are maybe cilia or flagella. So these are two cell organelles, cilia or flagella, that help in the movement of the organism. So we have learned about flagella that we have seen in the first segment of kingdom Monera. So here new word is there as cilia. So what is the difference between cilia and flagella? That we can see in the diagram. See, in a right hand side two diagrams are there. One is A, flagella, B is for cilia. Flagella means a long thread-like structure is there. See, a long thread-like structure is there at the anterior side of the organism. That is a single flagella. And cilia, see in diagram B, there are bristle-like structures, border-like structures all over the body. These are cilia. So definitely the basic difference between cilia and flagella are, flagella is long, cilia are short, very short, comparatively very short than the flagella. Flagella is less in number. See, there is only one flagella present in that organism, and cilia, numerous cilia are present all over the body. See, the direction of motion, see where the flagella is, there only the direction of motion. So the organism has to flip the flagella and move forward. But in cilia, see, cilia can move in any direction. So the direction shows the backward movement. So these are the basic difference between cilia and flagella. Flagella is larger, cilia is smaller. The number of flagella in an organism is very less, 1 or 2, and of cilia is it is abundant in case of organisms. And these are the basic difference. We learn much more differences in our cell chapter that we'll read later. So the movement, if the member is moving, if the member can move, they have either cilia or flagella, that you have understood. Then next come to reproduction. Reproduction basic modes are two types. One is asexual, one is sexual. Some of the organisms are so asexual, some of the organisms show sexual. So for the sexual reproduction, two cells, as they're unicellular, two cells just mix up, just fuse together to form a single zygote. So this zygote will develop into a new organism. So as we know that in sexual reproduction, fusion of two gametes occur forming a zygote. Here, fusion of two cells occur forming a zygote. That is a sexual reproduction. And asexual reproduction, you know, there is no fusion of any gametes, no formation of zygote, only body part divides into different pieces to form a new organism. So for mode of nutrition, we have learned there are two types, autotrophic and heterotrophic. For movement, there are two ways for movement. One is cilia, one is flagella. For reproduction, there are also two ways. One is asexual, one is sexual reproduction. Now we'll see what are the groups that the Protista is divided into. Protista is a vast kingdom, obviously. So we divide it in 5 groups. So you have to remember the name of the 5 groups. I know this is very tough name. This is very difficult names, but you have to remember this. So as you remember your best friend's name, when you get along with your friends, you also become acquainted with them. Exactly, it happens with that. When you get friend with biology, we'll get to remember the names of automatically. So first we'll start with the names of the groups. There are 5 groups: chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds, and protozoan. Just you can have a shortcut like CDESP. C stands for chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, S stands for slime molds, P stands for protozoan. So these are the 5 groups. Now we'll read one by one what are the characteristics of each group. Don't get confused with all these groups. It will be very easy when you get along with it. You will be habituated with it. So don't be confused, don't be panic. Slowly we'll move forward. So in one class only we are going for one kingdom. So don't be confused. Have faith in yourself and me also. Now let's start with our first group, chrysophyte. So before starting about chrysophyte, I just want to tell you one thing. In every picture, we'll have a cloud-like structure. See, there are orange color cloud-like structures. So in every picture, we'll have this knowledge cloud. Knowledge cloud, we have some extra knowledge about this chrysophytes. Whatever the content is, we'll have some extra knowledge, some interesting fact. So that you can have it with yourself, or you can share it with your family, with your friends. So first we'll go to the basic characters, then we will go to the knowledge cloud, what it says. Now let's start with chrysophytes. Achha. Who are the members? There are two members in chrysophytes. One is diatom, one is golden algae. Now see the diagram at the end. Diatoms here, wheel-like structure, so interesting. It looks so nice, na? So properly arranged structure. Then at this right side, see golden algae. Golden algae is there. So these are golden in color, grain-like structure. So these two are the members of chrysophytes. One is diatom, one is golden algae. Then habitat, where they stay. In fresh water means river, pond, well, like that. And marine water, that is ocean, the salty water. They are microscopic. We cannot see them in naked eye. We need a microscope to see this. So these are microscopic, and unicellular, obviously you know. Then they float in water current, in brackets written plankton. Plankton means small, very small microscopic plant-like structure, as they don't have any cilia, any flagella. So they only move through the water current, through the water waves. Why? Because they don't have any moving organelles, any cilia, any flagella. That is why they just move along with the water current or along with the water waves. Most of them are photosynthetic. So as they can produce their own food, they are photosynthetic. So most of the chrysophytes are photosynthetic. They can trap solar energy and produce their own food. Then they are the major producer of ozone. In the ozone, the major producers are the chrysophytes. So whatever products a ozone is producing, the major producers are chrysophytes. This is very important question. It comes in your NEET exam also. So who are the major producer of ozone? Chrysophytes. So these are the plankton. So these are the plant-like structure in the water. So they will produce the energy that will be this thing will be eaten by the zooplankton. Then they will be eaten by the small fish. Then they will be eaten by the large fish. You know about the trophic labels. Food chain. So food chain starts with this plankton. So as it starts with the food chain starts with this plankton, so obviously they are the producer. So they are the major producer of ozone. Just remember, chrysophytes are the major producer of ozone. Now let's see what is there in the knowledge cloud. First cloud says the cell wall looks like a soap case covered with silica. See, silica means sand. See the diagram there at your right side. So these looks like a soap case, just a soap, the base and a lid. So it looks so nice. So these diatoms, they arrange themselves like this: a base, a lid, and this base and lids are made up of silica or sand, you can say. So it looks very interesting. These are the cell wall, and these cell wall are made up of silica, sand, and they look like a soap case. The chrysophyte diatoms. Then next cloud says the diatomous earth helps in polishing, filtration of oil and syrups, insecticides. So what is this diatomaceous earth? Diatomaceous earth means, so see beside a powder is there, no, the white color powder. This is a crystal powder. So the silica present in the cell wall get deposited subsequently, and they will become a powder like structure. This powder we can use, powder we can call it as diatomous earth, and it is used in polishing. You know, sandpaper, we use it to polish our floor. So this crystal like structure, they are helpful in polishing, filtration of oils and syrups. So from crude oil, the production of petrol, diesel, all these things, it is this diatomous earth is used in the manufacturing factories, and it is also used as insecticide. Insecticide means in our farm, agricultural farm, to kill the insects, this diatomous earth is used. So in your next assignment, a question is there: what are the functions of diatomaceous earth? So first you can write, it is helpful in polishing, then filtration of oils and syrups, then it is used as insecticide. So these are the basic characteristics, and these are the members of chrysophytes, the diagram and the knowledge cloud. Now let's move to the next group, that is our dinoflagellate. See, this dinoflagellate looks very familiar, na? This sounds very familiar. Say flagella, obviously flagellate comes from flagella. Dino means two. So obviously it shows that these organisms must be having two flagella, right? Flagella, you know, that moving organisms. So now let's see one by one. First is mostly marine. It is present in ocean, sea, mostly. They are marine, or they are present in salty water. They are photosynthetic. They can produce their own food. They are autotrophic. And the one very interesting thing is they are colorful. They are not boring like us, obviously. They are colorful. See how many colors are there? Such a nice range of colors. Yellow, green, brown, blue, red. So many colors. And the cell wall has cellulose. Just like plants, trees, the cell wall has cellulose. Just like them, these dinoflagellates have a cell wall that is made up of cellulose. Most of them has two flagella that we have already discussed. One is longitudinal and one is transverse. That means two flagella are present exactly 90 degree to each other. See in the diagram below, one is longitudinal flagellum, another one is transverse flagellum. Flagellum is the singular form of flagella. So these two flagella are present perpendicular to each other. Not exactly 90 degree if you measure this with a protractor, but it almost looks like a perpendicular manner. So these are the basic characteristics of dinoflagellate, and example is Gonialuax. So this is the example. Now we'll see the clouds, knowledge cloud. Gonialuax can make red tides in the ocean. You have seen some movies, they have shown that drone camera capturing these red tides in ocean. You must have seen thinking ki these are edited or something happened. No, actually these are red tides. Red tides is caused by these dinoflagellates only. It's colorful. Whenever the color is very red, that means this red color dinoflagellates are present in that tide. So this makes the color of the waves red. Then number 2, cloud cells can release a toxin that kills other marine organisms, and if the number is more in the ocean, it will cause very harm effects on the marine organisms. So as they can release toxin, the more the number of dinoflagellate, it will be more harmful for the other marine organisms. So these are the basic characteristics of dinoflagellate. One example, you know, Gonialuax, that is a red dinoflagellate which can cause red tide in the ocean. So from the next time onward, if you watch a movie that is featuring a ocean with red tides, don't think that it is edited. That means it has a more number of Gonialuax dinoflagellates. Now let's come to our third member, that is euglenoids. Euglena is a very common name. You have learnt about it in your school days. So let's start with the characters. First, most of them are freshwater organisms. So in previous group, that is dinoflagellate, they are mostly marine, but these are freshwater organisms that we can find it in rivers, ponds, streams, well, etc. In place of cell wall, they have a protein layer called pellicle. Usually the cell is covered with cell wall, but in case of euglenoids, the cell is covered with pellicle. You can see in the diagram, see structure of euglena shows the last labeling is pellicle. Pellicle, it ends with the outer layer. See, this outer layer is made up of pellicle. Pellicle is made up of protein. Remember that, it comes in exam also. Euglenoids have an outer layer, that is the substitution of the cell wall, that is called pellicle, and pellicle is made up of protein. Next, they have two flagella, one long and one short. You can see in the diagram, there is a very long flagella and there is a very short flagella. In presence of sunlight, they are photosynthetic. In absence of sunlight, they are heterotrophic. So see, they are like magician. In presence of sunlight, they can trap the sunlight and can be photosynthetic, can produce energy, can produce their own food. But in absence of sunlight, they can switch their nutrition mode into heterotrophic. That means they can be saprophytic. They will depend on the dead and decaying organism for their food. So euglenoid is we can say euglenoids are magician. Why? Because they can switch their nutrition modes according to the surrounding situation. If sunlight is present, they are photosynthetic. If sunlight is absent, they are heterotrophic. So one basic example is Euglena, as you have seen in the diagram also. No need to draw this diagram, just have a look. Now we'll go to the knowledge cloud. What is this? First cloud says pellicle makes their body flexible. That means they can stretch their body according to them, according to their wish, because they have pellicle. So pellicle makes their body elastic. So they can stretch, expand or contract their body according to their wish. The second cloud says the pigment present in Euglena are similar to higher plants. See, as they are photosynthetic, so they should have some pigment, that is or chlorophyll, the photosynthetic pigment. So these pigments are present in plants also. Plants have chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, xanthophyll, carotenoids, all these pigments that we will learn later. So all these pigments are present in euglenoids also. That is why Euglena is said to have both the characteristics of plants and animals, because they can move, because they have flagella. So animals usually move, plants don't move. So they have one characteristic of animal, that they can move. Another characteristic is they are photosynthetic, as they have pigments. So one is plant character, one is animal character. So in that way also euglenoids are magician. So as they have both the characters of plants and animals, as they can switch their nutritional mode into photosynthetic or heterotrophic, they are very special. So this is the third group of kingdom Protista. Now let's go to the fourth group, that is slime molds. So now let's see the characters. They are saprophytes. Saprophyte means they depend on dead and decaying organism for food, that we have already discussed. See, under favorable condition, they can aggregate to make a structure called plasmodium. See the second picture, you can see this is a structure of plasmodium. That means when there is favorable condition, means proper water, food, energy source is available, this unicellular structure come closer and they will make a bunch. This bunch is called as plasmodium. And don't confuse it with the another protozoa called plasmodium. That plasmodium is different thing. This slime mold forms a structure. This structure is called plasmodium. So under favorable condition, when there is sufficient food, sufficient water, sufficient energy, they will form the plasmodium. They are bunch, or they will come closer. That we cannot, because we are quarantined for this corona thing. So for this, they can come closer, they can make a bunch. This bunch is called plasmodium. Under unfavorable condition, the plasmodium forms spore. So when there is lack of food, lack of energy, lack of water, this plasmodium, they can form spores. Minute spore-like structure, a minute circular structure, we call it spore. Spores have true wall and survive for many years. See, as the conditions are unfavorable, so they cannot germinate into new organism, because they don't have water, they don't have food. So how they will feed on, how they will eat, or how they will grow? So definitely they need some time. They will have to wait until the favorable time comes. So until that, they will be surrounded in the true world, just like we are doing. We are quarantined in our home only, because this is the unfavorable condition. When the condition will be favorable, when the corona will go away, we will come outside, we will go outside, we will germinate into new organism like thing. So like that only, this spores, when the favorable condition comes, they will germinate into new organism. See, the spores are dispersed by water current. When the water current will come, when there will be sufficient water, the spore will be dispersed, or the cell wall will be broken, and the spore will germinate into a new organism. The example is Badhamia. Now let's see the cloud. Plasmodium can grow up to several feet. See, so nice, so astonishing is that. We can it will be growing up to 5 to 6 feet also, right? Taller than some of us, definitely. So this is a very interesting fact about slime mold. See, these are the diagram of down. It is a diagram of your plasmodium. Up, it looks like a suji halwa, but it's not. It's a slime mold, diagram of slime mold. So these are the basic characteristics of our characteristics of group 4, that is slime mode. Now let's switch to our group number 5. So this is our 5th group, that is protozoan. So this page looks very blank, so don't be happy with that. This is not actual characteristics. These are the only 4 groups. We have to learn about the characters of each groups. Don't worry, it will be in one picture only. I will tell you everything in one picture only. So now let's start with protozoan. They are heterotrophs. So they are not autotroph, they are only heterotroph. This is the last group. Remember, the last group is always heterotroph. They cannot produce their own food. They can be either saprophytic or parasitic. Parasitic, you know that they can cause disease to us. They are very harmful to us. They will get their food from us and they will cause disease to us. So they are either predators, that they can kill us. They can kill the prey. Predation, you know, that killing or feeding on someone by killing it. So there can be predators, they will feed on the prey, or they can be parasitic, they can be disease causing. So there are 4 major groups. These are amoeboid protozoans, flagellated protozoan, ciliated protozoan, and sporozoan. So these names only suggest the names only suggest that what are the basic characteristics. So first is amoeboid protozoan, that means it's the amoeba, our very common biological friend. The amoeba is coming under this group only. So amoeba is a protozoan and it comes in amoeboid protozoan. Then flagellated, that means the protozoans having flagella. Then ciliated protozoan, that means the protozoan having cilia for movement. And the sporozoan. The sporozoan means it comes, the sporozoan word comes from spore, or you can say sporophyte. Like they have one stage of life that is of spore. They have one spore-like stage, that is functional stage. Usually spores are not that much functional, but they have a spore-like stage which is very functional and very pathetic also. It's very disease causing, it's very harmful to us. So these are the 4 major groups. In the next picture we'll learn about the characteristics of all groups. Don't worry, in only one picture, and we'll be finished with our kingdom Protista. Now let's move to the next picture. Here it is. So here it has 4 columns named as the 4 groups of our protozoan. So at the end of each column there are diagrams, so you can refer this diagram as example also. Now we'll start with amoeboid. It lives in fresh water, sea water, or moist water. In any water medium it can live. It can catch their prey by pseudopodia. See, one new term is there. Pseudopodia means false feet. See, in the diagram, amoeba has this pseudopodia, this outgrowth. You can see it's written pseudopodia, the outgrowth that are coming outside, the branch-like structure. So they will surround the pseudopodia with the prey inside, and they will join the pseudopodia. The prey will come inside the body and they will eat on it. They will feed on it. So this pseudopodia help in catching the prey. Pseudopodia means branch-like structures arising from their body. So example is amoeba. Amoeba has pseudopodia or false feet, and this thing help the amoeba to catch the prey. Then another example is entamoeba. Entamoeba histolytica we have learnt, I think. So entamoeba is a parasite that causes dysentery, loose motion in case of human beings. So these are the examples of amoeboid protozoan. So now you can see the diagram amoeba. Let's come to flagellated. Flagellated protozoans have either free living or parasitic. They can be free living, they can live independently, or they can present on some of us body as a parasite. That means they can cause harm to us and they can feed on us. Then they have flagella. They can move because their name is flagellated. They have flagella, they can move. Number 3 is parasitic and cause disease. Obviously they are parasitic and cause disease. Example is trypanosoma causes sleeping sickness. See, in this case, if trypanosoma attacks someone, so don't think that it's a fish-like fish. So it is a unicellular organism. We cannot see it in a naked eye. It is microscopic. So these protozoa, when enters in our body, it will cause sleeping sickness. That means a person will die of sleeping only. Don't think that some of you has this disease. No, we don't have this disease. It's very serious disease. It's very common in African people. So they will die of sleeping sickness only. It is caused by trypanosoma. It's very important. Question will come. Sleeping sickness is caused by dash trypanosoma. Trypanosoma is an example of flagellated protozoa. Then comes to ciliated protozoa. Ciliated protozoa is aquatic. So all of them usually are aquatic. See. Then can move by cilia as they are ciliated. Cilia means see all over the body they have brush, butter-like structure, minute outgrowths. You can see all over the body they have these outgrowths, small brush, butter-like structure. They have a cavity called gullet. They have a gullet means, so they have a tea stainer. Tea stainer we use to stain tea. So when we put it on the cup, we'll stain the tea. The tea will go to the cup, and granules, tea granules will remain in that tea stainer, just like gullet. So when the paramecium will see that food is there, this is aquatic, so in water the food is there, it will have the water with the food, the water will go outside and the food will remain in its body. So the gullet help like staining the food. The food will be stained into the body and the water will come out. So this gullet or cavity, it is helpful in staining the food from the water. Example is paramecium. Paramecium can also cause abdominal or stomach pain. Last one is sporozoan. Sporozoan, that is comes from spore, I said, because they have an infectious spore-like stage. In 12th, we will read about this nicely. So now you just know that they have a disease-causing or pathogenic spore-like stage, just like Plasmodium. They causes malaria. You know what is the vector of malaria? Which mosquito is the vector of malaria? Female Anopheles, right? So these female Anopheles, they get the spores of Plasmodium and they bite us and releases the spore inside our bloodstream, and that will cause malaria in our body. That is the example of that is the diagram of Plasmodium. So these are the 4 groups of our protozoan group, that is one member of our kingdom Protista. So all these we have learned about kingdom Protista. I think you have a good idea about this kingdom. You have learned something new from the knowledge cloud also, and you will also let your friends and family know about something interesting. Now in the next class we learn about the kingdom fungi. So do your assignment and send me over mail. If you have any doubt, you can ask me over mail, or you can ask in any manner you want. So today's daily quote is, there is no substitute for hard work. So keep doing hard work, you will get the result in any way.